was running workshops in 1980, and a consultant from Vancouver said to me, would you come and run this meeting for me? I'll run the client, you run the meeting. I'm a strategy consultant with them, on contract, and I'll set it up so that, if it really works, we're golden, and if it doesn't, you don't have to come back, and I don't lose, you don't lose. We'll try this out. And I realized at the time, I had a big epiphany, that my real clients in those early days were not organizations, but were management consultants doing strategy that needed to differentiate. And at the time, as soon as I figured that out, I got about 6 partners, all of whom had major client relationships, who wanted to work visually. And I was their meeting person, and they were the run the client person. And so I spent 8 years learning the strategy business. And it was during that time that the vision of actually marrying the consultants with a product company and actually sharing this methodology, with the world, developed. And so in the late 80s, it really emerged as a vision for the Grove, being a group that would pioneer new ways of collaborating. So our slogan for a lot of years was transforming the art of collaboration, and still is kind of my own North Star, if you will. Now we kind of call ourselves a visual meetings company, because that's a nice doorway in conversation. But for me personally, transforming the art of collaboration worldwide is what I'm up to.
What is strategic visioning?
Well, in the 90s, there was a lot of emphasis on inventing new things. Technology was just roaring out of Silicon Valley, and we were working down there. And what people were pretty clear about is that traditional strategic planning tends to be biased analytically. It biases toward history, and it's not really that good when you're learning your way into a new market. So what you need is to balance your hindsight, your analytical stuff, with foresight around a desired future, and that's the visioning. So strategic visioning is really taking the best tools from strategy work, which are kind of analytic, and marrying them with the best tools of visioning, which tends to be foresight-oriented, and then seeing how you can apply those insights in action.
You also have a personal compass product, which I love. How and why did you develop that product, and how does that fit with the overall Grove vision?
Well, a lot of people who worked with the templates in strategic visioning thought, this is a great way to think through my own life. And so in the early 2000s, after we moved over here to the Presidio, we had a couple of young people on the staff, our current art director and another person who was my assistant, who was a real livewire at the time, thought, okay, we're just going to make this because we want to use it. And my son at the time Tom Sibbet, was running the product group, and he encouraged them to create this. And basically, it's an adaptation of our strategic visioning templates for personal work. And so we wrote all the instructions and everything as though you were doing it by yourself. And so it's turned out to be one of those things that has a life of its own, even though we haven't marketed it particularly. It's very popular, and in fact, we've got a whole bunch of other ideas along these lines that we may well develop, if we start partnering for some resources.
One last question: what makes the Grove unique?
It's unusual for a full-service organizational development firm to have as its calling card visualization. Most people would have the organizational development stuff in the foreground and the methodology in the background. So the fact that we've distinguished ourselves by this particular way of working has allowed us to work across sector and across types of organizations at a breadth that is really unusual. We have not had to silo into a vertical market and just be in one industry. We've been able to work generally. And so being skilled generalists is kind of rare. It's unusual to be able to do that viably. And a lot of organizational consulting firms that try to just deal with OD as a whole thing, have trouble sustaining themselves long term. A lot of them will grow and then kind of butched up and their seats go elsewhere and the principals go on. And we've been managed to keep at this about 35 years now.